My mother slammed a legal document on my kitchen table and said, "You will sign this over to us, or you'll have nothing left." What they didn't know was that I had allies they'd never seen coming. Hi, I'm Hannah, and I'm 25 years old. I just graduated college and work an entry-level marketing job. I've lived modestly, even though my grandparents were wealthy. I wasn't spoiled or entitled, but I had something my parents didn't expect. Grandparents who saw through their children's greed. They shielded me from mom and dad's endless money troubles. Now they're gone, and I've inherited a $26 million estate, properties, investments, and trust funds. Drop your location in the comments. I read every one and need to know I'm not alone in this. My grandparents always said, "Hannah, we're leaving everything to you because you understand the value of money." Now I know why. When the lawyer gathered us in the conference room, everyone expected an even split. Instead, she read the will. $26 million goes entirely to me. My parents were excluded. My mother's face went pale. "There's been a mistake," Dad shouted. "We're next of kin. This can't be legal." The lawyer confirmed it. The will was ironclad. Then she read my grandparents' letter explaining why. Decades of mom and dad's reckless borrowing, never repaid. Dad screamed, "You manipulated them. You turned them against their own family." My mother hissed, "You're stealing from your own parents. We deserve half at minimum." The extended family watched in stunned silence as my parents stormed out, threats echoing, "We'll overturn this will." That night, Dad texted, "We're not done with you. That money belongs to this family." Within a week, my parents hired an expensive lawyer and filed a contest claiming undue influence and mental incapacity. Local news ran the story. "Greedy granddaughter inherits millions." On Facebook, my parents launched a campaign accusing me of stealing their retirement. Aunts, uncles, cousins took sides. Most backed my parents. Cousin Laura called, "Just give them half. You don't need all that money. It's tearing the family apart." My friends grew uncomfortable. Coworkers whispered about blood money. Legal fees piled up, and I watched my inheritance vanish faster than I could manage. Then came the public humiliation. My parents got our pastor to shame me from the pulpit for dishonoring my mother and father. Coworkers confronted me asking if I'd lost my moral compass. Neighbors stopped me on the street. "You should do the right thing and share that money." My father posted on Facebook, "Our daughter has millions while we face foreclosure. This isn't the child we raised." They dredged up private childhood stories twisted to cast me as selfish. I couldn't go anywhere without feeling eyes on me. The desperation escalated further. One evening, my parents showed up at my apartment with a locksmith claiming they owned the property. They contacted my bank, alleging fraud and threatening to freeze my accounts. They attempted to take loans out in my name. I had to get a restraining order against my own parents. At the courthouse, my mother screamed, "You've destroyed this family. Your grandparents would be ashamed." They recruited childhood friends to guilt-trip me into sharing the money. Then I learned they'd sold our story to a tabloid for $50,000, exposing my private life. Amid the chaos, I found solace in my grandparents' hidden records. In a locked drawer, I discovered detailed files. Every loan to my parents, every bailout, totaling $847,000 over 15 years, never repaid. There were voice memos my grandfather recorded. They never learned responsibility. Hannah has something they lost: integrity. I found evidence they tried to manipulate my grandparents into changing the will, and medical records proving my grandparents were mentally sharp until the end. A private investigator's notes confirmed my parents' lies. I realized they thought they could prove I'd manipulated my grandparents. Instead, I had proof they'd tried for years. My grandmother's best friend, Mrs. Rodriguez, became my key ally. At 82, she produced boxes of documents, photos, and recordings spanning decades. The estate's lawyer assembled a team of top attorneys who worked pro bono out of respect for my grandparents. Dozens of community members volunteered to testify to my character and my parents' habit of mismanaging money. My team prepared a countersuit for malicious prosecution and defamation. We hired a PR firm to tell my side. Expert accountants traced every dollar my parents borrowed and never repaid. My parents' lawyer warned them their case was unwinnable. The day of the hearing, the courthouse was packed with media, family, and community members. My parents arrived, confident their sympathy campaign would win. Their lawyer opened, "Your Honor, the decedent grandparents were vulnerable, and their granddaughter exploited them." The judge called on my attorney, who calmly dismantled every claim. On screens, my parents' own social media posts and bank statements flashed, proof of $847,000 in unpaid loans. In court, the recording played, my grandmother's voice saying, "They only call when they need money." 3 doctors testified my grandparents were lucid. Mrs. Rodriguez described my parents' manipulation attempts. My parents' perjury was exposed when social media posts contradicted their testimony. When it was my turn, I took the stand. I described how my parents only visited my grandparents when they needed cash. Your Honor, I told the court, they're not fighting for family, they're fighting for money they never earned. The judge dismissed their case with prejudice, upheld the will, and ordered my parents to pay my legal fees plus damages. He granted a permanent restraining order against their harassment. The media narrative flipped. I was the victim of greedy parents, not an unfair heiress. I made a brief statement. My grandparents worked 60 years to build this legacy. I will honor their wishes. With the legal battle behind me, I established a charitable foundation in my grandparents' memory. We funded scholarships for first-generation college students, small business loans for local entrepreneurs, and elderly care programs. Extended relatives began apologizing and asking for forgiveness. I maintained distance from my parents but used the foundation to help community members who truly needed support. I learned that money doesn't change who you are, it reveals who you've always been. My responsible use of the inheritance proved my grandparents' decision was right. Their will became a case study in law schools for bulletproof estate planning. They lost their daughter and their inheritance that day, but I found my true purpose. For the first time, I understood why my grandparents chose love over blood. If you've ever had to stand up to family betrayal, hit subscribe and tell me your story in the comments. Your story deserves to be heard. Where are you watching from? Drop it below. I always check. Your story deserves to be heard. Share it with us.